Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast, episode 67.
Welcome to the Out of Order Podcast, your window into the firearms community, exploring those shaping the future of our rights and protecting our lifestyle, laws, legal cases, activism, and self-defense in a candid and honest podcast for our brothers and sisters in arms. Here's your host, James Kalita.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 67 of the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. Today's sponsor is sellmorefirearms.com. Head over to sellmorefirearms.com, and if you are an FFL, you will find there a free guide on how to increase firearm sales using Facebook. It's a 10-tip guide that I put together, and head on over there, check it out. Today's guest is Ryan Cleckner. He's an attorney, author, professor, executive, entrepreneur, and now, here's Ryan.
Ryan Cleckner, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, James.
Oh, my pleasure. So, Ryan, you recently started an organization called Mayday Safety. Would you tell us a little about that?
Sure. As I think we'll probably get into, it's not like I didn't have enough other things going on. I was already stretched too thin, but I saw a need. Me and my partner that started this business together saw a need for school security, church security, business security, because as you know, I'm a huge Second Amendment proponent. I'm very anti banning any type of guns for being any type of solution, but I kind of got tired of constantly saying that banning guns won't work and then stopping the sentence there without adding, maybe this will, or let's go try this. And so a few months ago, we jumped into the software world, which is completely new to me. And we have now made an app that is live on iTunes and the Google Play Store. It's free for everyone in the world to download and protect themselves and their families. It's like a panic button for in your pocket that can alert everyone around you what's going on. And then we've made a dashboard that we kind of stole a little from the concept from the military of a Blue Force tracker, where you can see who's hurt and who needs help and who doesn't, and what's going on for organizations. Like a school can just look right at the dashboard and lock the school down and see where the help is needed and respond to any tragedies or anything that's going on.
Wow, so I think kids across the country are going to love this because you're kind of giving them a reason to have their cell phones in class.
I am, and that's actually some of the pushback we've received, right? So we decided, by decentralizing and by crowdsourcing safety, we could do a lot here. We put a panic button in everyone's pocket, but then a lot of the schools that are taking it are saying, yeah, nice try, Ryan. We don't like our kids having cell phones. So I think they may choose to limit it just to the teachers, but yeah, that's definitely a consideration there.
Oh, right. So I guess the way this would work in a school shooting scenario would be someone in the classroom would have the this app active. They would hit a button, and then the main office would know that there's a problem and where exactly that problem was.
Exactly right. So like Parkland, where the teacher saw the shooter a couple hundred yards away from the nearest building, she saw him. She said she knew he wasn't supposed to be there, and he looked like he was up to no good. Most security systems, whether it's even a fire alarm or an alarm system or a PA or whatever solution there is, they all usually require the home base or the headquarters to do something. So that teacher would have probably had to Google the front office phone number, because I can't imagine she has it in her phone, because who calls the front office of their own school, right?
Right.
So she'd have to call them and explain the situation, have to talk to the next person, and then who would have to send out that centralized alert. And then people would have to figure out how to react to that fire alarm or the PA system or be confused about what's going on. Where with Mayday, the idea is that teacher could see him, she could pull out her phone and tap that Mayday button, and the entire school gets locked down right then. So 5 seconds does it take a teacher to run to the door and lock it? So they have now locked the entire school down, and then the communication can start happening. We just think it's going to save a whole lot of time. And then when first responders show up, knowing who doesn't need help is sometimes as important as knowing who does need help, right? They know which building they can skip to go get to the people that might be injured and get them the care they need.
And is this something that families can adapt as well to their home? And
It is, and we're trying to figure that out, James, because one is the company just is exploding on us, which we're happy to have happen. And the reason we did it free is because we thought there's an altruistic reason, which is we want places around the world that don't even have their own 911 system to essentially have a free 911 system. You know, a small village somewhere could have an inexpensive Android device, and now they can get alerts from community members with a spot right on the map of exactly where the person is and where they need help. You know, even our 911 system doesn't do that, because so families here, when you call 911, unlike in the TV and movies, they don't know exactly where you're at. And the FCC said that 10,000 American lives a year could be saved with better, accurate information. So we're hoping that families here take it just so they can have their family members alerted worldwide, hey, I got a problem, and this is exactly where I'm at. Come get me some help.
Excellent. And everyone can find this app on iTunes and I imagine Play Store. Okay, great.
Yeah, the Google Play as of yesterday. So it's just live on Android. It's been out for iTunes for about a month now. And, I mean, we wanted it to be free for everyone because we want to help make the world safe, but it's also a marketing ploy a little bit in that we want enough people to get it that then businesses and schools realize that, hey, this isn't just a school app or a solution or software. This is a software for everybody's life where they can use it with their church and their work and their school, and it kind of just, it's fungible with everywhere. So that's the plan. We'll see if it works out. We're excited about it.
Excellent. And you are involved in so many things. I think I should probably have you on like a time management podcast too. Is I look at all the things you're involved in. I don't know how you get to them all. You've written a couple of books on long distance shooting. Would you like to tell us about those?
Sure. The time management podcast is just don't let people know how much you don't get done. Everyone thinks I do so much. It's just a matter of I always feel like I'm letting somebody down, and that is not a good feeling. You know, I have so much going on, but I always strive to do it. The first book I wrote, I did just because I thought that was something you're supposed to do before you die. It would be neat to say I wrote a book, you know, on a CV, and whether my mom and a best friend bought it and that was it, I just wanted to say I wrote one. And I did a bunch of videos with the NSSF on long-range shooting, and people seemed to really like my brand of breaking things down simply and not overcomplicating them or not talking down to people. So I said, you know what? Maybe that's my take on things. That's my angle. I'll just go ahead and write a book on it. And I just actually had gotten done. I just left Remington, traveling all over the country and being way too busy, and decided to just take some time off and write the book. So I wrote the book, did it in a couple months. Every picture in the book was taken with my iPhone. I mean, it really was just something I thought I'd do. And I have been blown away. It's been a little over 2 years now. It has been the #1 bestseller in the shooting category on Amazon the entire time, still. And it's sold like 65,000 copies so far. And man, I wish I took nicer pictures because I didn't realize they're going to like it. And I'm way overdue on an advanced version. People are wanting the second, the sequel. And I had to make a decision with my priorities. Am I going to help try and make school safer or write a shooting book? And I decided to make school safer. So that's where I'm at.
And that's a huge milestone. 60,000 copies is I've talked to a few people who have written nonfiction books, and if you don't write books, you kind of think you write a book and you can live fat off the royalties for the rest of your life. But that's a huge number of copies for a nonfiction book to sell. Did you do something special to market it, or how'd you do that?
I think if I have done anything well in business, I think again, it's built a following of people that are kind of the tribe is a bad word to use, not the best word to use because it's overused, but I think I've built a loyal following, and I've done that by being accessible, by doing things like this, by being on podcasts, or by willing to answer people's questions on emails, and all the stuff that everyone else tells me I'm crazy for doing, by being too accessible. If anything, I think that's made a loyal base of people that just like to support what I do. And the book is the same thing. When I go through the book, most people in the feedback you'll see on Amazon or online is they say it feels like I'm just hanging out with them and talking to them. I'm not one of those guys that says, let me impress you with how much I know about long-range shooting and how complicated this is. Instead, I say, don't worry about the small stuff. Sure, if you're shooting far enough away, yes, the spin of the earth technically matters. But for you, you're still learning, let's ignore it. Let's focus on what you can control. And let's break it down simply. And I think people took to that. So no fancy marketing, no fancy anything, just really great folks that have been very kind on reviews and telling people about the book.
Right. And you're still doing legal work. Anything that, I know you were a lawyer for Remington, but anything that the layman might benefit from knowing in your law practice?
Well, the legal work I do now is for usually just the larger industry members now. Because the book was successful enough, it's allowed me to not have to be a lawyer all the time. And it's allowed me to do other books like the kids' firearm safety book I just launched last week. But the legal practice, I keep a few clients active because I have relationships in the industry. That's usually import-export or ATF issues that manufacturers or dealers might have. But I also help people get their FFL. So one of the other businesses I run is Rocket FFL, and it's an online training course and materials that walks you through not just how to get your FFL. There's 7 chapters in the course, and only one of them talks about how to get your FFL. The other chapters are about the background that people need to know about the FFL licensing system, or about some record-keeping requirements, and about zoning issues, and all the things they need to know to get that going. And that's actually been a nice little boost to the law practice right there.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how complicated FFL compliance can be. It's
oh yeah,
and
definitely. The ATF stuff is tough enough, but usually the worst case scenario with the ATF usually is you get in enough trouble you lose your license, which that's bad if you're going to lose your livelihood. But the scary one is State Department compliance, right? ATF takes your license, maybe fines you some money. State Department can put you in jail, so you got to be careful out there.
Yeah. And you said you just wrote a book or published a book, Kids Firearm Safety. What's
I did, yeah. So my daughter came home from school spouting everything about pool and fire safety. I thought, well, why not firearm safety? I said, oh, well, of course I know why not firearm safety. It's a school. They're not going to talk about guns at school. And I thought, what a disservice that these kids now are not going to be exposed to the safety training they need just because of a political reason. Just because someone doesn't want guns to exist in a school, some administrator, doesn't mean that they don't. They should still know about it, right? The administrators will still talk to them about how to say no to drugs. That's not the administrators advocating for drugs. But for some reason, firearms is just that taboo topic that I didn't think was getting covered enough in schools. And although there's great firearm safety books out there, most of them are, Timmy the AR-15 teaches you about gun safety. They're really going to turn off non-gun people. There's always either a political message in there about how guns are not a problem, which I don't think they are, or it was a little too hitting people over the head with the topic. So I wrote a book that I hoped that even anti-gunners would like, and I hope you don't just kick me off the show for saying that. It's because I think their kids need firearm safety knowledge too, and they need to not be afraid of it. They need to know what to do in case they encounter a gun out in the world. So I wrote a book that's a little corny. It was a little embarrassing to come out with a book where you're making a rhyming, telling the kids you love them story with, the parents in the book, but it shows the kids going through one accident after another in the book, and the parents forgiving them and explaining that, oh, it's okay, the lamp broke, we can fix it. Or it's okay, you spilled the flour, we can clean it up. It's okay, you bent the nail, we can try again, all the way through the book, until a kid has an encounter with a firearm, and the kid notes how the reaction is much more severe to telling the kid to stay away. And the kid says, hey, well, what's the difference here? And the grandpa in the story explains, hey, things can break, but things can be mended. You can't be replaced. So there you go. So it sneaks it in at the end. That was my plan.
Oh, excellent. All right. And in addition to all these other things, you also have a podcast, and I was listening earlier today. You got back from Africa. You want to tell us a little about that?
Oh, sure. Africa was an amazing trip. When I was first offered to go, I said no. I'm not against people going to Africa hunting. Obviously, I just did it. But I love hunting. I wish all the meat I ate in my life came from hunting. But to me, Africa hunting seemed sometimes, what I've heard about it, a little too much like trophy hunting, which just isn't my thing. So they offered me to go. I said, oh, no, I appreciate the invite, but it's not my thing. I'm good to go. And they mentioned, well, it's for plains game. And I said, what's plains game? I said, oh, it's like wildebeest and axis deer and things like that. It's not going to be what you consider trophy animals. And I said, well, all right, that actually sounds kind of fun. Let's go do it. And so we went to South Africa. 10 days went by in a blink, and had great experience with the folks. Great time hunting. It was a really wonderful trip.
And so, your background is as a long distance shooter and a military sniper. When you're hunting, do you take shots at, I guess, what us folks up here in the Northeast, beyond 50 yards is long distance shooting? What kind of range are you hunting animals at?
This one's going to get me in trouble because I don't think that long range hunting is really hunting.
All right.
I mean, do it if you want. I'm not here to judge what anyone else is going to do. They can knock themselves out. But for me, if my chance of coming home empty-handed is because I missed or I didn't read the wind right, I wouldn't call that hunting. I would call that target shooting, because the challenge is whether you did or didn't hit the target. If I'm, however, maybe not going to get an animal because they smell me or see me moving or hear me sneaking up, well, now it's a matter of whether I could hunt well enough or not is really about the animal. So I think long distance hunting is kind of like target shooting at an animal. And I think all the shots I took in Africa, none were over 90 yards.
Okay.
So I like to get up on that. Even when we're out there with the guides, every once in a while you could see an animal in the distance from a vehicle. They'd say, oh, there you go. There's a great whatever it is. You can shoot from here. Each time I was with somebody hunting, we said, no, we're going to get off the truck and go hike after them and spend all day if we need to. But I like the hunting of the aspect of it. And I actually took a small caliber. I took a 6.5 Creedmoor to Africa.
Oh,
and
okay.
I have been a long holdout on 6.5 Creedmoor. It's not till the last 2 to 3 months that I finally adopted it. And it's because there's always going to be the newfangled whiz-bang cartridge that comes out. And it's always going to be so much better than everything else that existed. But if you always chase the new cartridge, you're always going to have a different rifle and a different caliber, and you're never going to have enough ammo, and you're never going to get good at it. So I've been a 308 guy as a mainstay for a long time, and I'm glad I didn't switch, because if I switched right away, I would have had a 260 Remington when that came out. It's essentially the same thing. But now that the SOCOM has finally adopted it, now that you can finally see 6.5 Creedmoor ammo everywhere, I decided to try it, and I tell you what, it was amazingly effective. 4 of us went to Africa hunting plains game. All 4 of us brought lightweight Barrett Fieldcraft rifles in 6.5 Creedmoor, and it was just devastating performance. So much so that that's exactly what I'd bring if I went back.
And so went 6.5 Creedmoor, skipped over 270, going from 308. Was it anything pushed you towards 6.5 over 270?
Oh no, I pushed over 260.
Oh, right.
So 260
right, yeah.
Remington, yeah. It's just, no, I could have gone for either one. I just use that as an example. And when people say, hey, look at the new fangled cartridge that came out this year, it's the next best thing, I'm going to get a bunch of rifles in that caliber. And I have to say, no, I'm going to stick with what's been around long enough that not only can I find ammo anywhere, but there's a lot of data out there and a lot of experience with it. And when everyone jumped on the 6.5 Creedmoor bandwagon right away, which is great, that's what keeps our industry alive, by the way, people buying things.
Yep.
And they say, well, what took you so long, Ryan? That's what I give as the example. So the 260 came out, 15 years before the 6.5 Creedmoor, and they are effectively the same cartridge. So I say, it's a good thing I didn't jump on the bandwagon, or I would have had a bunch of 260 rifles, and I would have been bummed out now because 6.5 Creedmoor has clearly taken off way more than 260 has. So sometimes it pays to wait and see which one's really going to take off. And once you get the military adopting the caliber, once you start being able to see it in every store you ever go to, then it's an okay bet in my mind that you can switch over to it.
Excellent advice, because I struggle with that too. Like I want there's so many calibers I want for my AR-15 that, and then I'm like, well, and then I talk myself out of it. But if I had money, I'd probably spend it. So
I go by purpose. I use an analogy to cars all the time. People say, what car should I get? I say, well, I don't know. What do you want to do with it? If you want to haul lumber, you need a pickup truck. If you want gas mileage, maybe get a Prius, because both of those are actually horrible at the opposite task. So if, I already have a pickup truck, I'm probably not going to get another one, but I might get a motorcycle. So I'm looking at calibers and someone says, well, Ryan, you got the 260, you should get a 6.5 Creedmoor. I would argue, I've already got that purpose covered. Maybe it's time to get something else. That's kind of how I look at it.
So in firearms, and I always hesitate to ask this question, but I get asked this question a lot. if someone's new to this and they're like, well, I want to buy a rifle and I'm only going to buy one, is there a rifle that they can buy and take, deer hunting and use for long distance shooting? Is there a setup that you would steer them towards?
Oh, sure. I would say get a Tikka T3 and 6.5 Creedmoor, because 6.5 Creedmoor is incredible for long range shooting. I mean, incredible. It outperforms anything in its power size, so it's great for that. And it's plenty. I took my wildebeest in Africa with a 6.5 Creedmoor. It works just fine for hunting. So now I would not have said that 6 months ago, because it really was only 2 or 3 months ago that I finally took the scales of saying, okay, now it's mainstream enough. The military is getting belt-fed 6.5 Creedmoor ordered for machine guns. I kid you not. It's now right. It's going to be a new staple for the military. Yeah, and I think I go into Walmart once a year, but I was in a Walmart a couple months ago, and I saw they had 3 SKUs of 6.5 Creedmoor on the shelf and only 2 SKUs of 308. And I said, I tell you what, that's a sign. It's finally here to stay. Yep. Now I'll do it. But even 6 months ago, I would have told someone to get a 308 because it's a NATO cartridge. You could find the ammunition anywhere in the world. It's understood. The reloading data is figured out. It's an established cartridge. But today, I'd say go ahead and go 6.5 Creedmoor and get something like one of those Tikkas that is so inexpensive but punches way above its class. Now, you want to get into thousands of dollars for a rifle, sure, you can get something much nicer.
Right, but then it seems that the more you spend, the less, well, maybe not the less versatile, but it tends to be less versatile, tends to be more application specific.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Right, and so I guess at what point when you're long distance shooting, do you really need to get, at what distances do you need application specific ammo and optics and rifles?
I think it doesn't matter what distance you're shooting. I think it goes back to what performance you want. So the bullet doesn't know how far it's going to fly when it leaves your barrel, right? And you don't pull the trigger, or you shouldn't pull the trigger any different at 100 yards than you do at 1,000. A trigger pull is a trigger pull. The bullet flies out, the same regardless, either way. It just has to do with what kind of accuracy you expect of the platform. So some people say, well, I don't need super accurate ammo because I'm not shooting very far. Okay, that's fine, but it doesn't matter the distance. It matters the accuracy you want. What they're saying is, maybe I'm only shooting 100 yards, so hitting within an inch at the 100 yards is fine for me, which I think it should be for the vast, vast majority of people. So I only want to shoot 1 minute of angle. Or I'm going hunting and I'm not going to shoot past 100 yards. I don't care if my gun and ammo shoot in a 3-inch circle. That's kind of what they're saying. Is it's not a distance issue, it's a acceptable amount of accuracy issue, right? Because we measure accuracy as an angle. So whatever accuracy standard you're happy with just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as distance goes. But really that's what you're talking about. So that's also why in hunting at 90 yards, I'm able to be effective maybe standing or kneeling or in an unsupported position because that's what I practice. And it's because I'm using the exact same principles I use to make further shots on closer shots. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah. No, that's excellent advice because sometimes I ask that question and, we're into 5 figures and, but that is an excellent answer. Someone can participate in, long distance shooting without the $5,000 or $10,000 buy-in.
Oh, absolutely. I think, matter of fact, I had one of the Tikkas in a chassis, which I'm not a fan of, the chassis, but I did an NSSF video recently where it was a 20 minutes, all one camera shot, no cuts, no editing, no anything, of just how I zero a rifle. Threw a brand new scope on a brand new rifle and walked people through all 9 rounds of shooting it. And the last group I shot was a 5-round group off of a backpack. And you walk up to the target with the camera and you're like, there it is. It's this perfect tiny little group. And it was just factory ammo on a factory rifle. So it's just about the fundamentals. And it's about defining what your target is. I think a lot of people have a problem with that. As they say, well, how accurate do I need to be? I come back with, I don't know, you tell me. If you're hunting, you need to be as accurate as the kill zone on the animal. If you're trying to shoot a quarter at 100 yards, then you need to be an inch accurate. And then let's figure out from there. Because so many people miss when they're unsupported, when the rifle's wobbling around. It's because they have this monologue in their head, and I know you all have this, because I have it too, is you're looking at the crosshairs and you're thinking, a little bit left, a little higher, no, lower, up, right about now. And you jerk the trigger when it's lined up in the center. Well, the problem is, I believe, and this sounds counterintuitive, but I believe in having an acceptable amount of error when you're shooting. You just tell me what's acceptable, right? So if you're shooting a 6-inch target at 100 yards, I used to do this all the time with sniper students. You take a 6-inch steel target at 100 yards. And you say, look at all you guys. You have all this training and all this skill and all this experience and this expensive rifle and all this nice ammo. What I want you to do is from the kneeling position, shoot the thing twice, then get into the seated position and shoot the thing twice, and then get in the prone position without bipods, though, up on your elbows, and shoot the thing twice. I want 6 shots on that 6-inch target in 60 seconds. And it was amazing how the majority of these professional snipers would fail miserably at that. They'd only get 2 or 3 out of the 6 shots on the target. And then I'd, of course, teach them after the fact. You never teach them first, right? You got to have the difference to see. I'd say, here's what you guys are doing. And I'd go through that monologue and say, you're trying to be too perfect, which was causing you to miss. Instead, I told you a hit anywhere on that 6-inch circle is fine. So the acceptable amount of accuracy you need here is 6 minutes of angle. That's what, 6 inches is 100 yards. What you need to do is allow the reticle to move within the target, anywhere within the target, and start applying steady pressure to the trigger. And then if the reticle happens to be at the very edge when the gun goes off, great, that's a hit. I just wanted you to hit the steel target. But instead, by trying to be too perfect, you end up jerking the trigger and yanking the shot completely off. So I got to quit my job and go do my own thing. That's a really good book. I'd appreciate it if you don't mind. Just they can link to ryancleckner.com to learn more about all my projects. Or I'd really appreciate a link to maydaysafety.com. So you guys can come check out and see what we're doing and see how you can incorporate the system into your guys' lives. And maybe the next time you're debating somebody about guns, you can bring that up as a viable solution that doesn't interfere in other people's rights.
Absolutely. I will link to those, and I guess probably Rocket FFL too. I know you are a sniper instructor. Do you have public classes that people can attend, or is it just military?
I don't. I used to,
okay.
And I want to get back into it. Just as you've mentioned, my time. It's one of those things where I get people that email me regularly. Oh, I'll pay for a private course, until I come back and tell them, well, this is kind of what I have to charge per hour. It gets unreasonable for both sides to do courses. But, I need to get back into teaching because I love it so much. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll get something together soon.
Excellent. Well, I thank you so much for being on the show. Any parting advice for our listeners?
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Great.
Thanks again for tuning in to episode 67 of the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. Show notes page for today's episode is outoforderjameskalita.com/67. And please head over there, and please remember to check out sellmorefirearms.com. We'll see you next time.